Early in November 2018, a woman was stabbed fatally by her ex in front of their child at Seattle Center. Bystanders did intervene, which led to a standoff that was ended by police. Police ended the standoff here, which ironically, or maybe not ironically, using non-lethal force, they took him down right in front of the monument. They took him down right here in front of his totem pole. This totem pole is dedicated to John Williams, a Seattle carver, an artist, Native American, who was fatally shot by a Seattle police officer while walking down the sidewalk, while carrying his carving tool. Isn't it ironic, don't you think? The old Curiosity Shop, one of Seattle's oldest businesses. John Williams' grandfather, Sam Williams moved to the Seattle area in the late 1800s and worked as a wood carver. Sam Williams had a long relationship with the old Curiosity Shop, where he would sell totem poles for the tourist trade. Sam Williams, whose people's name I won't try and murder by mispronunciation, were native to the west coast of Vancouver Island. Before the Space Needle was built, and even before the Smith Tower, this totem pole in Pioneer Square was the symbol of Seattle. Pioneer Square is where Seattle started. In the late 19th century, a group of men went up to Alaska and found what they claimed was an abandoned village and cut down several totem poles, sent several of them back east. One, they sent in Seattle. People stole this totem pole, or rather they didn't. An arsonist torched it, it burned up. That's a replica. It was replaced by descendants of the tribe that built it originally. This is a replica built in 1940. This totem pole was also stolen, but not from natives. It was stolen from this spot in 2009. A gentleman called a crane operator to help him lift the totem pole, and they got stuck in the mud. So they called a tow truck, which called the police not to stop the theft, but to block off the street so they could more easily tow it away. The totem pole was recovered, the man was caught, as is typical in cases of theft of Native American items. No charges were pressed. He did agree to pay for restoration. This pole was carved by a Native American from South Dakota. Now this totem pole was carved by members of the Boeing people, known as the Engineers. This is the Admiral Way Viewpoint Story Pole. This story pole behind me was carved by a descendant of Chief Seattle. Replaced the totem pole carved by the Boeing Engineers. I think one of the main objections people had over this pole is that you can't see it. The old one was bright colored. Nothing wrong with it. More in line with the native. Can't see it. Because of a leak in the underlying structure, these two totem poles are going to come down, at least temporarily. There is a move afoot to take them down permanently, because some say they aren't indicative of what the people who lived in Seattle, the Duwamish. It's not indicative of their art style. The two poles in Victor's Park here were commissioned specifically for it and carved by a Native American wood carver. However, they don't reflect the Duwamish style. It's a bit like showing off Seattle with sunny sky postcards. Some suggest it's a bit like having the Seattle Native people represented by a Plains Indian. So are only Suquamish and Duwamish traditions legitimate in Seattle? Ignoring the tens of thousands of Alaskan and Northwest Coast natives from other places? In 1865, Washington territorial government incorporated the town of Seattle. One of the Seattle City Council's first acts was to ban Native Americans, Indians, First Nations peoples from living within the city of Seattle. The Seattle City Council has been stupid from the start. Chief Seattle died in 1866, barred from living in a city named after him. In 1869, the city reincorporated and they removed the ban. It's been suggested that totem poles weren't even being carved until the middle of the 19th century, until a regular supply of iron and steel were available to make the large carvings. It's also been suggested, usually by these same people, that any of the older evidence has decayed because it's mostly made of wood in a very damp, wet climate. Totem poles probably developed out of carved interior wooden poles in longhouses among the Haida or the Tlingit. So can a native culture only be what it was pre-contact? I don't know. I'm not trying to be helpful. Seattle has a long history with totem poles. It's part of the city's identity. Right or wrong.